Here she is. I just picked this up last Sunday. It's a 2007 Yamaha Grizzly 400. Had low miles. Last Sunday I brought it home and realized it wasn't nearly as tall as my Grizzly 700, and I was gonna have to snorkel it, of course, being that I live next to a river that I like to cross and play in. So I did it kind of similar to what you see online already with the triangle kit, but everybody says it's a piece of shit. So I don't know, I just went to the hardware store and bought my own stuff. Just needed some spa tubing. They're about 16 feet. Will give you enough. There's one 90-degree elbow in there, and that's a 2-inch rubber elbow, and that's what I got connected to the front of the engine, and then the tube coming out of that. Glue that in there, and then wrap heat tape around that end because the exhaust pipe is right above it. And then also wrap heat tape around your exhaust pipe because that thing puts off a lot of heat and it might melt the tubing. The other one, the way I have it, tucks underneath and it's not really getting the heat. Which, the bottom one is the rear vent line, and I go underneath the motor here. Make sure you protect that all really well, because it's on your frame and on some bolts there, so wrap some protective tape or anything you can figure out so that it's not just rubbing on your frame, because you're going to grind a hole into it really fast. And then in the back half, I just used a 2-inch coupling. They actually have like these little steel rings around them with, I forget what it's called, but you take the steel band off and it's this nice flexible little rubber connector, 2-inch size. Glue the hell out of that and then squeeze it on, hose clamp that on, zip tie everything really well. Think about where it's going to be rubbing, and that you don't rub a hole in the tubing right away. Then there's 4 lines to vent. I think a couple of them come out in the front, and at least one of them come out by the air inlet. Vent all those. Same type of piping I used out of here with one of them same rubber connectors I mentioned in the back. Glue the piss out of all this, and then run it down underneath. Zip ties. Now I heat wrapped it, and I even put this little aluminum foil tape on here because you're really close to your pipe there. You don't want this plastic tubing melting. I've gotten mine pretty hot so far and hasn't, melted, but that's a concern I have. That runs around and comes up, and I believe it's this side ends up being my air inlet. Underneath you can wrap it, and there's actually a little space right here by the speedo that I was able to put the tubes up through. And then for this tube, which I believe ended up being my exhaust tube from the rear of the CVT, I used the hole that's underneath the hood already that the front inlet used to use, and that way I didn't have to cut any of the plastics underneath the hood, and all I did was drill holes in the hood. If I want to put this thing all back to stock, I can. All I gotta do is buy one new hood, and everything else I left alone. On your carburetor, very important that you find where it drains out on the bottom. That's your little drain line. That's also your overflow line. So if you don't plug this, when you get in deep water, water is going to go right back up that, and there's a little tube inside your float bowl, and that goes right up into the top. What's that's for is if your carburetor sticks open and keeps flooding with fuel, it's going to go up and out that tube. So that's actually an overflow, and that's why even though you got a little screw right there and you think it's shut, water is still going to go up in your carburetor, and what it'll do is make your engine just start sputtering and probably stall. It might run shitty for a while. After a while it'll start running good and you'll be wondering what's going on. Well, that's what's going on. Water's getting up in your carb. I did miss one other vent line for the carburetor on the Grizzly. They wrap up and they put it underneath the gas tank. You almost have to lift the gas tank to get it out of there, and because I didn't find it till later, I ended up just venting it up the handlebar here. and down because I was already done with all that and I didn't feel like reopening it all up. So ends up being I had 5 vent lines. If you think I missed one, comment below because I sure would like to know. I dielectric greased, you know, some of the fittings, not all of them. There's some under here, there's some in the front, there's some in front of the gas tank that goes with the ignition key. That seems kind of important. You don't want that one shorting out. Really take the patience and do them all. Oh, here's the ones down here. The more the merrier. It is a Yamaha, so they use marine grade plugs, and you really shouldn't have a problem in the deep water. Make sure you dielectric grease your spark plug and seal the piss out of everything. Make sure you take her easy when you go first in the water. Don't take your exhaust pipe under the water. That way if you flood your CVT and you're stalled, or you happen to stall, it's not such a big deal. You're not going to be getting water in your air box as long as you're in shallow water. Make sure all this stuff works first before you try going in the deep stuff. One thing I didn't mention is right underneath here I actually use these little rubber connectors for screwing this pipe together, so I can unscrew these and then you wouldn't even have these hanging up here, and I could tuck all the pipes under the vent lines under here and you wouldn't even really know I had snorkels under here. If you happen to use those couplings, make sure you glue them, because I kind of knew they might leak, and they did leak. I got a little bit of water in my air box and nothing major, but I had to go back and glue them. It's fun. This little Grizzly definitely goes through some stuff. Very impressed. I like riding, my Grizzly 700, and boy have I been having fun on this little 400. I switched the steel rims that they came with, and put some old aluminum rims off my old Grizzly 700, and lightened up the machine. This thing floats really well. You can just pick up the front end and float it across the river if you need to, so not really a panic situation. If you stall out in the water, a lot easier to move around than a big 700, that's for sure. If you have any questions, post below. If you got any suggestions or advice as to what I did or did wrong, tell me. Thanks.